Your soulmate realized they made the biggest mistake of their life. Don't scroll. Listen to this, because this message found you for a reason. Whether you believe in destiny, divine timing, or simply the quiet wisdom of your own heart, something about these words is asking you to pause. Your heart needs this right now because somewhere, beyond what your eyes can see, someone connected to your soul has reached a moment they never expected to face. It didn't happen with loud music or dramatic arguments. It happened in silence. In a quiet moment when they were alone with their own thoughts and there was nowhere left to run from the truth. For so long they convinced themselves they had made the right decision. They buried their emotions beneath work, responsibilities, distractions, and endless excuses. They told themselves they would eventually forget you. They believed time would erase what their heart refused to release. But something changed. A memory returned without warning. A familiar song played. A place reminded them of you. A dream felt so vivid that waking up only made your absence feel even more real. In that single moment, everything they had spent so long denying came crashing down around them. They realized they hadn't moved on at all. They had only delayed facing the truth. Your heart needs this right now because the realization didn't arrive gently. It arrived with overwhelming clarity. Suddenly they began replaying every conversation the two of you ever shared. They remembered the little things they once overlooked. Your kindness. Your patience. The way you listened without judgment. The way your presence brought peace into moments that otherwise felt chaotic. They remembered the laughter that came naturally between you, the comfortable silence that never needed to be filled, and the feeling that somehow you understood them without needing endless explanations. Those memories no longer felt ordinary. They felt priceless. They began asking themselves why they had ever allowed fear, pride, misunderstanding, or outside influences to convince them that walking away was the right choice. No answer they found was good enough. Don't scroll. Listen to this because something inside them has shifted forever. For the first time, they stopped blaming circumstances. They stopped telling themselves that timing was wrong or that life simply pulled you apart. Instead, they looked honestly at themselves. They admitted that fear made them hesitate when courage was needed. Pride kept them silent when honesty could have changed everything. Doubt made them question a connection that deserved trust. That realization hurt more than they expected because it forced them to see that the greatest obstacle had never been the world around them. It had been the walls they built inside their own heart. Your heart needs this right now because while they were carrying on with everyday life, something deeper had already begun changing. They started noticing that nothing truly fulfilled them anymore. Conversations felt empty. Achievements didn't bring the satisfaction they expected. Even moments that should have made them happy somehow felt incomplete. They weren't searching for excitement anymore. They were searching for peace. And every path their thoughts followed somehow led back to you. Not because you were perfect, but because the connection represented something genuine that they had failed to appreciate while they still had the chance. Don't scroll because this next part matters. They began questioning every decision they made after the separation. They wondered how different life might have been if they had simply spoken honestly. What if they had admitted how deeply they cared instead of pretending they were unaffected? What if they had chosen vulnerability instead of distance? Those questions became impossible to silence. Every "what if" echoed louder than the excuses they had repeated for months. Regret has a unique way of revealing truths that comfort once concealed. Your heart needs this right now because they are beginning to understand something many people never realize until it's too late. Real love isn't measured by constant excitement or dramatic moments. It's measured by peace, trust, consistency, and the quiet feeling of being understood. Those are the things they once overlooked because they seemed too ordinary. Only after losing them did they realize those ordinary moments were actually extraordinary. They now understand that genuine connection is rare and cannot simply be replaced by meeting someone new. Don't scroll. Listen carefully because this realization has changed the way they see themselves. Instead of asking why life became difficult, they are asking who they need to become. Instead of wishing the past could magically change, they are beginning to grow from it. They understand that regret alone cannot repair what has been broken. Growth must follow realization. They are slowly learning patience, emotional honesty, and accountability. These lessons are not easy, but they know they cannot keep living as the version of themselves who made those mistakes. Your heart needs this right now because there are moments when they quietly speak to you in their thoughts, even though you may never hear the words. They imagine apologizing for the misunderstandings. They imagine explaining everything they never had the courage to say. They wonder if you would recognize the person they are becoming or if too much time has already passed. Sometimes they smile while remembering you. Other times they sit in complete silence because words are no longer enough to express what they feel. Their heart has become both their greatest teacher and their greatest reminder. Don't scroll because something remarkable is happening beneath the surface. The person who once avoided difficult emotions is beginning to face them. The one who once ran from vulnerability is beginning to embrace honesty. The one who once believed distance would solve everything now understands that healing only begins when truth is accepted. That truth isn't always comfortable, but it is freeing. Every lesson they learn brings them closer to becoming someone capable of loving without fear instead of hiding behind uncertainty. Your heart needs this right now because none of this transformation happened overnight. It came through lonely evenings, quiet reflection, unexpected memories, and countless moments of self-examination. Every experience slowly removed another layer of denial until only honesty remained. Now they know the biggest mistake of their life wasn't simply losing someone they loved. It was failing to recognize the value of that love while it was still within reach. That realization has become the turning point of their journey. Don't scroll. Stay with this because this is only the beginning. The regret they feel is no longer meant to trap them in the past. It is preparing them for something greater. Every lesson, every memory, and every moment of reflection is shaping the next chapter of their life. The story is no longer about what they lost. It is becoming about who they are willing to become because of what they lost. And as this quiet transformation continues, they know one thing with absolute certainty. They will never again allow fear to make the decisions that only love was meant to make. They never expected the weight of one realization to change everything, yet that is exactly what happened. After admitting to themselves that they had made the biggest mistake of their life, they could no longer return to pretending everything was fine. Every morning felt different. The routines they once followed without thinking suddenly carried an emptiness they couldn't ignore. They smiled when people expected them to smile, answered questions the way they always had, and continued moving through daily life, but deep inside, something had permanently shifted. Your soulmate knew that the version of themselves who once ignored their heart no longer existed. They had awakened to a truth that could not be silenced again. Your heart needs this right now because the universe has a way of slowing people down when an important lesson is ready to be learned. Instead of rushing toward distractions, your soulmate found themselves sitting quietly, reflecting on everything they had overlooked. They remembered the moments when you tried to understand them, even when they struggled to explain themselves. They remembered times when you offered kindness without expecting anything in return. They remembered conversations that seemed ordinary then but now carried extraordinary meaning. It wasn't the grand moments that stayed with them. It was the simple ones. The peaceful conversations. The genuine laughter. The comfort of knowing someone truly cared. For the first time, they realized that genuine love isn't always loud. It often arrives quietly, asking only to be appreciated. And because they failed to recognize it when it was present, they now understood the cost of taking something beautiful for granted. Don't scroll. Listen to this because another realization followed closely behind the first. They stopped asking themselves why everything had fallen apart and started asking what they needed to learn. That question changed everything. Instead of blaming fate, timing, or circumstances, they accepted responsibility for their own choices. They admitted that fear had spoken louder than faith. Pride had become stronger than honesty. Silence had replaced conversations that might have changed everything. This wasn't easy. Accepting responsibility never is. But strangely, the moment they stopped blaming the world, they also stopped feeling powerless. They realized they still couldn't rewrite the past, but they could become a different person moving forward. Your heart needs this right now because growth often begins where excuses end. As this realization settled deeper, they noticed something unexpected happening around them. Situations that once seemed important no longer held the same value. Success without peace felt empty. Recognition without genuine connection felt meaningless. They began seeing people differently, listening more carefully, speaking more honestly, and noticing emotions they had ignored before. Even their closest friends sensed a quiet change. There was less defensiveness, less rushing, less pretending. Inside, they were rebuilding themselves one truth at a time. Don't scroll because something even more surprising began unfolding. There were moments when your name entered their thoughts without warning. It wasn't forced. It wasn't obsessive. It simply happened naturally. A familiar street reminded them of a conversation you once shared. A favorite meal brought back memories of laughter. A sunset reminded them of a peaceful moment they never fully appreciated while it was happening. These memories no longer brought only sadness. They brought gratitude. Because even though regret hurt, those memories reminded them that real love had existed. That alone became something worth protecting. Your heart needs this right now because many people spend their lives searching for authenticity without ever recognizing it when it appears. Your soulmate now understands that they were fortunate enough to experience something real, even if they didn't honor it the way they should have at the time. Don't scroll. Listen carefully because this next part matters. One evening, while sitting alone, they imagined what they would say if they had one honest conversation with you. Not a dramatic speech. Not an emotional performance. Just honesty. They imagined saying they were sorry for every moment they allowed fear to speak louder than love. Sorry for every silence that created distance. Sorry for every assumption they made instead of asking questions. Sorry for believing they had endless time. The words stayed inside their heart because they understood something important. An apology has meaning only when supported by genuine change. That realization became their motivation. Instead of rehearsing conversations endlessly, they focused on becoming someone whose actions would eventually reflect those words. Your heart needs this right now because transformation isn't measured by promises. It's measured by consistency. Slowly, day after day, they began making different choices. They became more patient. More emotionally honest. More willing to admit when they were wrong. Less interested in appearing strong and more interested in becoming genuine. These changes weren't happening for appearances. Nobody was watching. Nobody was applauding. They simply knew they could never return to being the version of themselves who allowed fear to control important decisions. Don't scroll because the universe often rewards sincerity before it rewards certainty. As they continued growing, they noticed something else changing. Their anxiety about outcomes slowly disappeared. Instead of constantly wondering what the future might bring, they started focusing on living with integrity today. If another opportunity ever appeared, they wanted to meet it honestly. If life moved in another direction, they still wanted to become someone they could respect. That shift brought an unexpected peace. Your heart needs this right now because inner peace is often the first sign that real healing has begun. They also realized something profound about you. Throughout all this reflection, they never imagined you as someone waiting endlessly for them. Instead, they hoped you had continued growing too. They hoped you were finding happiness, discovering your own strength, and building a peaceful life regardless of what happened between you. Oddly enough, that hope made their feelings even more genuine. Because love stopped being about possession. It became about wanting the best for someone, even when uncertainty remained. Don't scroll. Listen to this because maturity quietly transforms love. What once felt desperate now feels patient. What once felt fearful now feels trusting. What once demanded answers now respects timing. Your soulmate understands that if two people are ever meant to reconnect, it should happen from wholeness rather than loneliness. From honesty rather than desperation. From peace rather than fear. That understanding has become the foundation of everything they now believe. Your heart needs this right now because the greatest mistake of their life has become their greatest teacher. It taught them that love cannot survive where honesty is absent. That silence often creates more pain than difficult conversations. That vulnerability isn't weakness but courage. And that protecting the heart sometimes requires opening it instead of hiding it. Every lesson has reshaped them in ways they never expected. They no longer wish they could simply erase the past. Instead, they hope to honor it by becoming someone who would never repeat the same mistake again. And as this quiet transformation continues, one truth grows stronger with every passing day. They are no longer searching for the easiest path. They are searching for the truest one. Because they finally understand that real love was never something they were supposed to escape. It was something they were meant to recognize, protect, and cherish before it was too late. As the days continued to pass, something inside your soulmate became impossible to ignore. The mistake they once tried to rationalize now stood before them with complete clarity. It wasn't just one decision they regretted, it was every moment they ignored their intuition, every opportunity they allowed fear to steal, and every silence that created distance when honesty could have built understanding. They realized that life rarely changes because of one dramatic event. More often, it changes through small choices repeated over time. Looking back, they could finally see the pattern. Each time they chose pride instead of vulnerability, the connection weakened. Each time they convinced themselves there would always be another chance, they unknowingly walked farther away from something deeply meaningful. That realization didn't fill them with hopelessness. Instead, it awakened a determination they had never experienced before. They no longer wanted to become someone who simply regretted the past. They wanted to become someone worthy of a different future. Your heart needs this right now because real transformation begins the moment a person stops running from uncomfortable truth. Your soulmate stopped asking why things happened the way they did and started asking who they needed to become. That question changed every part of their life. They became more intentional with their words. They stopped making promises they couldn't keep. They learned to listen without preparing a response. Conversations became deeper because they were finally present instead of distracted by fear or insecurity. Friends noticed the difference. Family members sensed a quiet maturity that hadn't existed before. Even strangers seemed to respond differently because authenticity carries a presence that cannot be faked. One evening they found themselves remembering conversations they once dismissed as ordinary. They remembered your kindness when they were confused. They remembered your patience when they struggled to understand themselves. They remembered how you never demanded perfection, only honesty. Those memories didn't accuse them anymore. Instead, they became lessons. They realized that love had never expected them to be flawless. It simply asked them to be truthful. That understanding broke something open inside their heart. For years they believed strength meant hiding emotions, avoiding vulnerability, and pretending everything was under control. Now they understood that real strength is admitting fear while choosing honesty anyway. Don't scroll. Listen to this because another realization quietly unfolded. They stopped imagining impossible ways to change the past and began imagining how they could live differently today. Instead of replaying old conversations endlessly, they practiced saying what they genuinely felt in everyday situations. Instead of avoiding difficult discussions, they welcomed them with patience. Instead of assuming people understood them, they learned to communicate with clarity. These small changes slowly rebuilt their confidence. Not confidence based on appearance or achievement, but confidence rooted in integrity. Your heart needs this right now because integrity creates peace that external success never can. Your soulmate discovered that once they aligned their actions with their values, anxiety slowly began to disappear. They no longer felt divided between what they believed and how they behaved. That inner harmony became more valuable than approval from anyone else. They realized that for too long they had shaped themselves around other people's expectations, afraid that speaking their truth might disappoint someone. Now they understood that abandoning themselves had been the greater mistake. As this healing continued, something unexpected happened. Thoughts of you no longer arrived with panic or desperation. Instead, they appeared with gratitude and respect. They thought about your resilience, your kindness, and the quiet strength you carried even during difficult moments. Rather than wishing you had waited for them, they hoped you had continued growing into the happiest version of yourself. That hope surprised them because it revealed how much their understanding of love had changed. Love was no longer about possession. It was about honoring another person's journey, whether or not it matched their own timeline. There were mornings when they would wake up with a strange sense of calm. Instead of immediately reaching for distractions, they sat quietly with their thoughts. They realized silence no longer frightened them because silence had become a place where truth could finally be heard. In those quiet moments they admitted something they had resisted for a very long time: losing connection with someone genuine hurts because genuine connections are rare. That truth humbled them deeply. Your heart needs this right now because sometimes the universe allows distance not as punishment but as education. Your soulmate began understanding lessons that could never have been taught through comfort alone. They learned patience through waiting. They learned gratitude through absence. They learned honesty through regret. Most importantly, they learned that love cannot thrive where fear is making every important decision. Don't scroll because something beautiful started happening next. Their future no longer felt like something they needed to control. They stopped obsessing over exact outcomes and started trusting that living honestly would naturally guide them toward whatever was meant for them. Whether life offered another conversation, another opportunity, or simply the peace of knowing they had changed, they accepted that authenticity mattered more than certainty. That acceptance changed their energy completely. Instead of carrying heavy emotional pressure, they moved through life with quiet confidence. They smiled more naturally. They laughed without forcing it. They found joy in simple routines that once felt meaningless. Healing wasn't dramatic anymore. It had become part of everyday life. At times they imagined meeting you again, not as someone seeking forgiveness, but as someone finally capable of offering the truth they once withheld. They imagined speaking without rehearsed speeches or emotional performances. Just calm honesty. They imagined thanking you for everything the connection had taught them, regardless of where life eventually led. Even that simple thought brought unexpected peace because they realized authentic conversations don't require perfect circumstances. They only require sincere hearts. Your heart needs this right now because sincere growth never goes unnoticed. Even when nobody applauds the effort, every honest choice strengthens the person making it. Your soulmate began seeing this clearly. Every day they chose courage over avoidance, they felt lighter. Every time they admitted uncertainty instead of pretending confidence, they felt stronger. Every act of kindness offered without expectation reminded them of the person they truly wanted to become. They also understood something profound about timing. In the past, they believed timing was simply luck. Now they saw it differently. Timing is often created by readiness. When hearts are ruled by fear, even perfect opportunities can be missed. But when hearts become grounded in truth, even uncertain situations can become meaningful. That understanding removed much of the frustration they once carried. Don't scroll. Listen carefully because this realization became the foundation of everything that followed. They no longer measured progress by whether someone returned or whether circumstances changed overnight. Instead, they measured progress by who they became each day. Were they more honest today than yesterday? More compassionate? More patient? More authentic? Those questions replaced all the anxious questions that once dominated their thoughts. Your soulmate finally understood that the biggest mistake of their life was never simply losing someone they cared about. The real mistake was losing themselves in fear for so long. And now, with every step forward, they were finding themselves again. Piece by piece. Choice by choice. Truth by truth. That journey had become more important than any single outcome because they knew one thing with absolute certainty: whatever the future holds, they will never again allow fear to silence a heart that has finally learned the value of honesty, courage, and genuine love. By now, your soulmate understands something that once seemed impossible to accept. The biggest mistake of their life was never simply making one wrong decision, it was allowing fear to guide too many important moments. They see clearly how hesitation created distance, how pride delayed honesty, and how assuming there would always be more time nearly cost them something they now recognize as deeply meaningful. Yet instead of remaining trapped in regret, they have reached a quiet turning point. They have stopped asking the universe to erase the past and started asking for the wisdom to honor the future differently. That shift has changed everything inside them. They no longer wake up wondering how to escape uncomfortable emotions. Instead, they face them with openness because they understand that healing only begins where honesty is welcomed. The heavy emotional storm that once consumed them has slowly transformed into calm determination. They know they cannot rewrite old chapters, but they can decide how the next ones are written. That realization has become the foundation of every choice they make. Even the smallest decisions now carry greater intention because they refuse to repeat patterns that once pulled them away from authenticity. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to be truthful. Every relationship becomes a place to practice respect instead of control. Every quiet moment becomes a reminder that peace is created by integrity, not by avoiding difficult truths. Your heart needs this right now because growth always looks quieter than people expect. Your soulmate isn't trying to prove they've changed through dramatic words or emotional promises. They understand that genuine transformation is demonstrated through consistency. Day after day, they continue choosing patience over impulsiveness, listening instead of interrupting, understanding instead of assuming. They have discovered that maturity is not measured by how passionately someone speaks but by how faithfully they live according to their values. This realization has brought a kind of confidence they never possessed before. It isn't loud or attention-seeking. It is steady, calm, and deeply rooted. For the first time in a long while, they feel comfortable being completely themselves without worrying whether everyone approves. They no longer shape their identity around pleasing others because they finally understand that authenticity attracts the right people naturally. That lesson has become priceless. As weeks continue passing, memories of you no longer feel like painful reminders of failure. Instead, they feel like meaningful lessons wrapped in gratitude. They remember moments when you showed kindness without expecting anything in return. They remember conversations that seemed ordinary at the time but now reveal hidden wisdom. They remember the patience you demonstrated while they were still learning lessons they couldn't yet understand. Looking back, they recognize that many of the qualities they now admire within themselves first appeared because your presence challenged them to grow. Rather than clinging to guilt, they now carry appreciation. They silently thank the connection for revealing parts of themselves that had remained hidden beneath fear for years. This gratitude softens every painful memory, transforming regret into wisdom. Don't scroll. Listen to this because another important realization quietly settles into their heart. They understand that love cannot exist where self-respect is absent. In the past they confused sacrifice with devotion, silence with peace, and avoidance with protection. Now they know real love allows truth to breathe. It creates space for honesty even when honesty feels uncomfortable. It encourages both people to become stronger individually instead of remaining emotionally dependent upon one another. This understanding has completely reshaped how they think about relationships. They no longer dream about being rescued from loneliness. Instead, they dream about standing beside someone as equals, each bringing wholeness rather than searching for completion. Your heart needs this right now because this transformation is not happening through fantasy. It is happening through ordinary days lived differently. Your soulmate notices how much calmer life feels when they stop fighting reality. They find joy in peaceful mornings, meaningful conversations, quiet walks, familiar music, and moments of gratitude that once passed unnoticed. The need for constant emotional intensity has disappeared because they finally recognize that healthy love feels peaceful far more often than dramatic. That realization surprises them. For years they believed excitement was proof of destiny. Now they understand that emotional safety creates something far more valuable than excitement ever could. It creates trust. There are still moments when they wonder what the future may hold. They are human, after all. Questions still arise naturally. But those questions no longer control their emotional state. They have learned to sit comfortably beside uncertainty without allowing it to become fear. Instead of forcing answers, they trust that truth reveals itself when hearts are prepared to receive it. This patience has become one of the greatest gifts their journey has offered. It allows them to remain present instead of becoming trapped inside imagined futures or painful memories. Life suddenly feels larger than a single outcome. Every experience becomes meaningful because every experience teaches something valuable. Sometimes they imagine what they would say if life created another opportunity for honest conversation. Surprisingly, the speech grows shorter instead of longer. They no longer feel the need to explain every mistake or defend every decision. They simply wish to speak from the heart. They would acknowledge where fear once guided them. They would express gratitude for everything the connection revealed. They would share the person they have become through growth rather than asking anyone to focus on who they used to be. Most importantly, they would respect whatever response came because genuine honesty never demands a particular outcome. It simply offers truth with kindness and allows freedom to remain intact. Your heart needs this right now because freedom has become central to everything they now believe. They understand that love cannot flourish where manipulation, guilt, or emotional pressure exists. Healthy connection invites choice rather than obligation. It creates understanding rather than confusion. It celebrates individuality instead of asking someone to become smaller for the sake of comfort. That philosophy now guides every interaction they have, whether with family, friends, or strangers. People notice the difference even if they cannot explain it. There is something peaceful about someone who no longer needs to prove their worth. Your soulmate has gradually become that person. The universe has taught them one final lesson they will never forget. The biggest mistake of their life was never simply losing an opportunity. It was forgetting their own voice while trying to satisfy everyone else's expectations. Finding that voice again has changed the direction of their entire journey. They no longer fear vulnerability because vulnerability led them toward authenticity. They no longer fear rejection because rejection can never diminish genuine self-worth. They no longer fear uncertainty because uncertainty leaves room for miracles that control never could. Don't scroll. Listen carefully because this is where everything comes together. Your soulmate now understands that healing is not the destination. Healing simply prepares the heart to live honestly. Every challenge, every difficult realization, every sleepless night, and every quiet moment of reflection has brought them to this place of inner stability. They no longer need constant signs to reassure them because peace itself has become the greatest confirmation. Their heart feels lighter. Their mind feels clearer. Their spirit feels stronger than it has in years. Whether life brings reunion, a meaningful conversation, or simply continued personal growth, they know they will meet it with honesty instead of fear. That confidence is the greatest gift this journey has given them. Your heart needs this right now because perhaps the deepest truth of all is this: mistakes only define a person when they refuse to learn from them. Your soulmate has learned. They have grown. They have become someone who values truth above comfort, integrity above appearances, and authentic love above temporary certainty. Whatever unfolds from this point forward will no longer be shaped by fear but by wisdom earned through experience. They now walk forward carrying hope instead of regret, courage instead of hesitation, and quiet confidence instead of emotional chaos. And for the first time in a very long time, they genuinely believe that whatever is meant to reach them will never require them to abandon themselves again. That belief has become their new beginning, and it is one they intend to protect for the rest of their life.